wasn't supposed to stay there. The price alone should have warned me. It was the kind of deal you don't question when you're tired, but later you wish you had. I had been driving for hours, my eyes burning, my head heavy, and when I saw the flickering sign outside the hotel, I didn't think twice. It looked old. Not charming old, just forgotten. Like a place people pass by without seeing. The parking lot was almost empty, only 2 cars, both covered in a thin layer of dust like they hadn't moved in days. That should have been my first sign, but I was too exhausted to care. I grabbed my bag, locked my car, and walked toward the entrance. The lobby lights were dim. Not off, just low enough to make everything feel wrong. The air smelled stale, like old carpet and something damp underneath it. There was no music, no TV, no sound at all, except the faint buzz of a dying light above the counter. That's where I saw him. The front desk clerk. He was standing completely still behind the desk, like he had been waiting. Not working, not busy, just there. His head was slightly down, eyes focused on something I couldn't see. For a second, I thought he didn't notice me, but then he spoke. Checking in? His voice was flat. No warmth, no curiosity. Just a question that sounded rehearsed. "Yeah," I said, forcing a small smile. "One night." He nodded slowly, still not looking at me. His fingers moved across the keyboard, but it didn't sound like he was typing anything real. Just random taps, like he was pretending. I shifted my weight, suddenly aware of how quiet everything felt. "You don't get many guests this late?" I asked, trying to fill the silence. He stopped typing. For a moment, I thought he didn't hear me. Then, very slowly, he shook his head. "No." That was it. No explanation. No follow-up. Just that one word. A strange feeling settled in my chest. Not fear. Not yet. Just discomfort. The kind you can't explain, but you feel it growing. He reached under the counter and pulled out a key. Not a card. A real metal key with a faded plastic tag. "Room 214, he said. As he held it out, I noticed something. His hand was slightly shaking. Not enough to be obvious, but enough to make me notice. I reached for the key, and for the first time his eyes lifted. Just for a second. And in that second, something felt off. He wasn't looking at me. He was looking past me, like there was something standing right behind my shoulder. I almost turned around. Almost. But I didn't. "Is everything okay?" I asked, my voice quieter now. His eyes dropped immediately. "Your room is upstairs," he said quickly. "Second floor, end of the hall." That was it. Conversation over. I stood there for another second, waiting for something else. Anything normal. A smile. A "have a good night." Something. Nothing came. So I nodded, picked up my bag, and turned toward the stairs. As I walked away, I could feel it. That feeling, like I was being watched. Not from behind me, but from somewhere I couldn't see. I told myself I was just tired, overthinking. It was a cheap hotel, that's all. Of course it felt strange. Of course the staff was weird. But as I reached the stairs and placed my foot on the first step, I heard it. A soft sound, like the clerk taking a sharp breath. I paused, just for a second. Then I kept walking, because deep down, I had this uncomfortable thought I didn't want to face. If I turned around, I might see him staring at me again. Or worse, I might see that he wasn't the only one standing in that lobby anymore. The front desk clerk didn't act normal. At first, I tried to ignore it. People working night shifts are usually tired, quiet, a little off. That's what I told myself as I stood there, waiting for him to finish whatever he was doing behind the desk. But the longer I watched him, the harder it became to explain it away. He didn't blink much. That was the first thing I noticed. His eyes stayed open just a little too long, like he was afraid to close them. And when he did blink, it was quick, almost forced, like he had to remind himself how. I cleared my throat softly, just to break the silence between us. "I'd like a room," I said. He didn't respond right away. Instead, his fingers kept tapping on the keyboard. Slow, uneven, not like someone typing actual information. It sounded random, like he was just hitting keys to make noise. I glanced at the screen, but it was angled away from me. I couldn't see anything. Then, after a few seconds, he finally spoke. "You're alone?" The question caught me off guard. "Yeah," I said. "Just me." He nodded slightly, but his expression didn't change. Still blank, still distant. Another pause. Too long. "ID," he said. I handed it over, watching his face closely this time. He looked at it, but not really. His eyes moved across the card, but it felt like he wasn't reading anything. Just pretending to. Then something strange happened. His grip tightened. Just for a moment. Like, something on the card bothered him. "You're only staying one night?" he asked. "Yeah, just passing through." He nodded again, slower this time. "That's good." I frowned a little. "Good." He didn't answer. Instead, he placed my ID down very carefully. Almost too carefully. Like he didn't want to make any sudden movements. Then he leaned down slightly, disappearing behind the counter for a second. I heard a faint metallic sound, like keys or something being moved. When he came back up, he was holding that old-fashioned key, room 214. He placed it on the counter instead of handing it to me directly. That felt intentional. I reached for it, but before I could grab it, he spoke again. "Do you lock your door at night?" The question made me pause. "Yeah, of course." He nodded, but there was something different this time. Something heavier in the way he moved. "Make sure you do." A small chill ran through me. "Is there a reason I wouldn't?" I asked, trying to keep my tone light. For a second, I thought he might actually answer. His lips parted slightly, like he was about to say something, but then he stopped. His eyes shifted again, not to me, past me. That same exact spot as before. My stomach tightened. I could feel it now. That strange tension in the air, like something unseen had just stepped closer. "Your room is upstairs," he said quickly, his voice lower now. "Second floor. End of the hall." It sounded less like directions and more like a warning. I picked up the key slowly, my fingers brushing against the cold metal. It felt heavier than it should have. Neither of us spoke after that. The silence stretched between us, thick and uncomfortable. I turned to leave, but something stopped me. "Hey," I said, glancing back. "Is this place always this empty?" He didn't answer right away. I watched him carefully this time, waiting, hoping for something normal. Finally, he shook his head once. "No." That was it again. No explanation, no smile, no reassurance. Just, no. I stood there for another second, unsure of what I was expecting. Maybe a joke. Maybe a simple "it's a slow night." Anything to make this feel less strange. But it didn't come. Instead, he lowered his gaze back to the desk, like I wasn't even there anymore, like the conversation was over, or like it never mattered. I swallowed quietly, adjusting the strap on my bag. "All right. Thanks," I muttered. No response. I started walking toward the stairs, each step echoing slightly in the empty lobby. The sound felt too loud, like I was disturbing something that preferred silence. Halfway to the stairs, I felt it again. That sensation. Like eyes on my back. Stronger this time. Heavier. I slowed down without meaning to. Every instinct told me not to turn around, but curiosity pushed against it. Just a little. Just enough. I stopped. And then, before I could think better of it, I glanced back. The clerk was still behind the desk, but he wasn't looking down anymore. He was staring, straight at me, completely still, and this time, there was no pretending. His eyes were wide, unblinking, and filled with something I couldn't ignore anymore. It wasn't anger. It wasn't confusion. It wasn't confusion. It was fear. Not fear of me. Fear for me. And right as our eyes locked, he shook his head, very slowly, like he was trying to warn me, without saying a single word. The room felt wrong the moment I stepped inside. It wasn't obvious at first. Nothing jumped out. No broken furniture. No strange smell. Just a normal, cheap hotel room. A bed, a small table, a chair in the corner. Everything where it should be. But something didn't sit right. I closed the door behind me, the soft click echoing a little too long. For a second, I stood there, just listening. The silence was heavy, not peaceful, not calming, just thick, like the room had been holding its breath before I walked in. I shook it off and dropped my bag near the bed. "Get a grip," I muttered under my breath. I was tired. That was all. Long drive, weird check-in. My mind was just playing tricks on me. I stepped further in, scanning the room again, trying to find something normal to focus on. That's when I noticed the mirror. It was big, way bigger than it needed to be, hanging on the wall directly across from the bed, perfectly positioned so that if I lay down, it would face me completely, not at an angle, not off to the side, straight on. I frowned slightly. "Who puts a mirror there?" I whispered. It felt intentional. Like it was placed there for a reason. I walked closer to it, slow steps, my eyes locked on my own reflection. Everything looked normal. My face, my clothes, the tired look in my eyes. But something about it still felt off. The way the room appeared in the mirror didn't match how it felt behind me. I turned around quickly. The room was the same. Nothing changed. Then I looked back at the mirror again. Still normal. Still me. I let out a small breath, almost laughing at myself. This is stupid. I stepped back and turned away, deciding not to overthink it. I moved to the bed and sat down, the mattress sinking slightly under my weight. It creaked, old springs complaining softly. I pulled out my phone. 2:46 a.m., almost 3. I thought about texting someone, just to feel connected to something outside this place. But I stopped myself. It felt unnecessary. I was just staying one night. Just sleep and leave. That was the plan. I leaned back on the bed, staring at the ceiling for a moment. The light above flickered faintly, just once, then stayed steady. I exhaled slowly, trying to relax. But I couldn't, because even without looking, I knew the mirror was there, right in front of me. I could feel it. Not see it, not hear it, just feel it. Like something was focused on me from that direction. I shifted slightly, turning my head just enough to catch a glimpse of it from the corner of my eye. There it was. Still, silent, reflecting everything exactly as it should. So why did it feel like? It wasn't. I sat up again, a little faster this time. "Okay, that's enough," I said quietly. I stood up and walked toward it again, more determined now. If something felt off, I needed to prove to myself that it wasn't real, that this was just in my head. I stopped a few feet away. My reflection stared back at me, same position, same expression. I raised my hand slowly. The reflection copied me perfectly. I tilted my head. Same movement. Everything matched. Exactly. Too exactly. I leaned in. Closer, studying my own eyes in the mirror, looking for something, anything that didn't line up. But there was nothing. Just me. Tired. Slightly tense. Overthinking. I stayed there for a few seconds, longer than I meant to. Then I stepped back. And that's when something strange hit me. I couldn't remember the last time I blinked. I blinked quickly, shaking off the thought. "Stop it," I whispered. This was getting ridiculous. I turned away from the mirror again, more forcefully this time, like I was done with it. I walked back to the bed and sat down, grabbing my phone again. 2:47 a.m., 1 minute later. But it didn't feel like 1 minute. It felt longer. I frowned, staring at the screen. Maybe the clock was off. Maybe I just lost track of time. That happens. I placed the phone beside me and leaned back again, trying to settle in. But the feeling didn't go away. If anything, it got stronger. That same pressure, that same awareness. The mirror, right in front of me. I clenched my jaw, slightly, resisting the urge to look again. Because now, it didn't just feel like I was looking at it before. It felt like something inside it had started looking back, and this time, it didn't feel like it was just my reflection anymore. I didn't notice the time changing. One moment I was lying there, staring at the ceiling, trying to ignore the mirror, and the next, something felt off. Not loud, not sudden. Just a quiet shift, like the room had moved without me. I reached for my phone. 2:49 a.m. I stared at the screen for a second longer than I should have. It felt strange seeing that exact time, like it meant something, even though I couldn't explain why. Then I heard it, a soft sound, right outside the door. Not a knock, not footsteps. More like something dragging slowly across the floor. I froze. Every part of my body went still as I listened. The sound came again. A slow, careful scrape. My eyes shifted toward the door without me moving my head. The bottom gap between the door and the floor looked darker than before. Or maybe it always looked like that. I couldn't tell anymore. "Hello?" I called out, my voice low, unsure. No response. The silence that followed felt worse than the sound. I pushed myself up slowly from the bed, my movements careful, controlled. Like making too much noise might draw attention. Another scrape, closer this time, right against the door. My chest tightened. I took a few slow steps forward, each one feeling heavier than the last. The carpet barely made a sound under my feet, but it still felt too loud in my ears. I stopped a few feet from the door. Nothing, just silence again. I swallowed, my throat dry. "This is stupid," I whispered to myself, trying to steady my nerves. Probably someone in the hallway. But even as I said it, it didn't feel true. The sound didn't feel like someone walking. It felt deliberate, like something was right there, waiting. I leaned forward slightly, staring at the thin gap under the door. That's when it happened. Something moved. A shadow, shifting just enough to make my breath catch. Then slowly, very slowly, a piece of paper slid under the door. I stepped back instinctively, my heart jumping hard in my chest. The paper stopped halfway inside the room. It just stayed there. Like whoever pushed it didn't want to push it all the way. I stared at it, waiting, expecting another sound, another movement. Nothing came. The hallway outside went completely silent again. I stood there for a few seconds, frozen, trying to decide what to do. "Maybe it's a message," I muttered quietly. "Maybe the staff," but even that didn't make sense. Why would the staff slide a paper under my door at this time? And why so? Slowly, I forced myself to move, one step forward, then another, until I was close enough to reach it. I crouched down carefully, keeping my eyes on the door the whole time, like something might suddenly appear on the other side. My fingers hovered over the paper for a second, then I picked it up. It was just a plain sheet, slightly crumpled, no envelope, no markings on the outside. I stood up slowly, holding it in my hand. It felt normal, too normal. That somehow made it worse. I unfolded it. The paper made a soft crackling sound as it opened. My eyes dropped to the center. There was only one line written on it. Messy handwriting. Uneven. Like it was written in a hurry. "Don't look in the mirror now." I felt my stomach drop. For a moment, I didn't move, didn't breathe. The words didn't make sense at first. Or maybe they made too much sense. My grip tightened slightly on the paper. "How would anyone know?" I whispered. I hadn't said anything about the mirror. I hadn't complained. I hadn't called the front desk. I had barely been in the room. So how did someone know? A cold feeling crept up the back of my neck. Slowly, my eyes shifted away from the paper, not toward the door, toward the other side of the room, toward the mirror. I didn't turn my head. I just felt it, that same presence. Stronger now, heavier, like whatever was there before had been waiting for this exact moment. My heart started beating faster. The note trembled slightly in my hand. "Don't look in the mirror now." The words echoed in my mind, over and over. Not later. Not ever. Now. Which meant something had changed. something was happening, right at this moment, and if I looked, I would see it. I would see it. I swallowed hard, forcing my eyes back to the door instead. The silence in the hallway was complete. No footsteps, no voices, no sign that anyone had been there at all. Just that note, and the message that made my skin crawl. Because deep down, I knew one thing for sure. Whoever wrote it wasn't trying to scare me. They were trying to warn me. I didn't move for a while after reading the note. My eyes stayed locked on those words, like if I looked away, something worse would happen. My hand tightened around the paper without me realizing it, the edges pressing into my fingers. I could feel my heartbeat in my chest, slow at first, then building, heavier with each second. Don't look in the mirror now. The word now kept repeating in my head. It wasn't a general warning. It wasn't something vague. It was specific. Something was happening right now. I forced myself to breathe, slow and quiet, trying to keep control. My body felt tense, like it was preparing for something I couldn't see yet. Then I heard it, a soft knock. Not on the door. Behind me. My whole body stiffened. Instantly. The sound was faint, almost gentle, but it came from inside the room, from the direction of the mirror. I didn't turn. I couldn't. Another knock. Slow. Careful. Like something testing the surface. My throat went dry. "That's not possible," I whispered under my breath. There was nothing behind me. Just the wall. Just the mirror. But the sound came again. Tap. Tap. Not random. Not accidental. It had a rhythm. Like someone was knocking from the other side, trying to get my attention. I squeezed my eyes shut for a second, shaking my head slightly. "This isn't real," I muttered. "You're just tired." But even as I said it, I knew it didn't explain anything, because the sound stopped the moment I spoke. And that felt worse. Like whatever was there had heard me. I stood completely still, listening. The silence stretched again. Too quiet, too empty. Then something else started. A faint movement. Not a sound exactly, more like a shift. Like fabric brushing lightly against glass. My fingers trembled slightly, still holding the note. I could feel a cold sensation creeping across my skin, spreading slowly from the back of my neck down my arms. I didn't want to look. Every instinct told me not to. The note said it clearly. Don't look. So I didn't. I kept my eyes fixed on the door in front of me, forcing myself to stay focused. But the longer I stood there, the stronger the feeling became, that presence. Right behind me. Close. Too close. Like something had moved nearer. Without making a sound, my breathing grew shallow. I tried to control it, but it kept slipping. In. Out. Too fast. I swallowed hard, my mind racing for something logical. Maybe someone was outside the window. Maybe the mirror was loose. Maybe the building was old. But none of it fit. None of it explained the knocking, or the way the air felt now. Heavier. Thicker. Like the room was slowly closing in. Then I heard it again. But this time, it wasn't a knock. It was softer. Almost like a whisper. I couldn't make out any words. Just a faint, broken sound, right behind me. My heart slammed harder against my chest. I felt a sudden urge to turn around. Strong. Overpowering. Like something was pulling at me, trying to force me to look. My body leaned back just slightly before I caught myself. No, I whispered quickly. My voice came out shaky. I tightened my grip on the paper again, like it was the only thing keeping me grounded. Don't look in the mirror now. I repeated it in my head. Over. And over. Like a rule I had to follow. Because whatever was happening, that message was the only thing that made sense. The whispering sound faded, but the presence didn't. If anything, it felt closer. Right at my back now, so close I could almost feel it breathing, but there was no breath, no warmth, just cold. A deep, unnatural cold that made my skin tighten. My hands started to shake, not from fear alone, but from the effort of holding still, of not turning, of not looking. Seconds felt longer, each one stretching out heavy and slow. And then, something changed. The air shifted again, subtle, but enough for me to notice. The pressure behind me eased just a little. The silence returned, complete. I stood there frozen, waiting for another sound. Another knock, another whisper, but nothing came. Only that quiet, that same heavy quiet from before. But now, it felt different, because this time, it didn't feel like something was trying to get my attention anymore. It felt like it already had. I didn't turn around, not yet, but the feeling didn't go away. It stayed there, heavy, quiet, and close, like something had stepped right behind me and decided to wait. I could feel it in the air, in the way my skin tightened, in the way my breathing refused to slow down no matter how hard I tried. I kept staring at the door, the handle, the lock, the thin gap at the bottom, anything to avoid looking back. But that only made it worse, because the less I looked at the mirror, the more aware I became of it. Like my mind was trying to fill in what I refused to see. I shifted slightly, just enough to ease the tension in my legs. That's when I noticed something strange. My shadow. It stretched faintly across the floor in front of me, cast by the weak light above, but it didn't feel right. I frowned, staring at it. I hadn't moved much, but the shadow looked slightly off. The angle didn't match the way I was standing. One side seemed longer than it should be. I blinked, trying to clear my vision. "Stop overthinking," I whispered. But then it happened again. A small movement, not from me, from the shadow. It twitched, just a little, so quick I almost missed it. My breath caught in my throat. No, I stayed completely still, watching, waiting. My heart pounded harder, louder, filling my ears. The shadow didn't move again. It looked normal, flat, still, exactly how it should be. I let out a slow breath, shaking my head slightly. "You're imagining things," I said under my breath, but the words didn't help, because deep down, I knew what I saw. I tightened my grip on the note again, crumpling it slightly now without realizing. "Don't look in the mirror now." The warning echoed in my head again, which meant one thing. Whatever was wrong, it wasn't just in front of me, it was behind me. I swallowed hard, my throat dry. Then I made a mistake. I moved. Just a small shift of my foot. Barely anything, but it was enough. Because the moment I moved, my shadow didn't follow right away. There was a delay, a fraction of a second, but I felt it, saw it. My body froze instantly, every muscle locked. My eyes stayed glued to the floor, watching, waiting. Slowly, very slowly, the shadow adjusted, catching up, matching my position again, like nothing had happened. But it was too late. I had seen it, and once you see something like that, you can't ignore it. A cold wave ran through me, stronger than before. My hands started shaking again, not lightly this time, worse. Because now it wasn't just a feeling. Now there was proof. Something was off. Something was wrong. And it was connected to the mirror. I didn't need to look to know that. I could feel it. Right behind me. Closer than before. Closer than anything should be. My breathing turned shallow again, uneven. I tried to steady myself, but my body wouldn't listen. It felt like something was pulling at me. Not physically, but mentally. Like a pressure building inside my head, telling me to turn, telling me to look. Just one glance. That's all it would take. "Don't," I whispered to myself. My voice was barely there. I tightened my eyes for a second, then opened them again, focusing hard on the door. But the urge didn't go away. It grew stronger, more intense, like something was getting impatient. And then I felt it. A shift behind me, closer. So close that I could almost sense its shape. My chest tightened. I stopped breathing for a moment, because this time, it didn't feel like something in the mirror anymore. It felt like something had stepped out of it. My fingers went numb around the paper. My body leaned forward slightly without me meaning to. like I was trying to escape that space behind me. But I couldn't move far. I couldn't run, because I still didn't know what was there. And somehow, that made it worse. The not knowing, the waiting, the silence. Then, slowly, carefully, I glanced down at the floor again, at my shadow, and what I saw this time made my heart drop completely. There were two shapes now. One was mine, and the other was standing just behind it. I stopped breathing. My eyes were locked on the floor, on those two shadows that shouldn't have been there together. One was mine. I knew the shape, the way it leaned slightly forward, the outline of my shoulders. But the second one, it stood directly behind it. Still, tall, too close. I didn't move, not even a little, because I was afraid if I did, it would move too. My chest tightened, a slow pressure building like something was sitting on it. I tried to take a breath, but it came out shallow, uneven. "This isn't real," I whispered, barely hearing my own voice. But the shadow didn't disappear. If anything, it became clearer. The edges sharpened slightly, like it was settling into place. Right behind me. I felt it again, that presence, closer than ever now. So close it didn't feel like it was behind me anymore. It felt like it was right there, hovering, waiting. I swallowed hard, my throat dry, my tongue heavy. My mind started racing, searching for something logical. Light tricks, reflections, maybe something outside the window casting another shadow. But none of it made sense. The angle was wrong. The distance was wrong. Everything about it was wrong. And deep down, I knew it. My fingers tightened into a fist, the crumpled note pressing against my palm. I could feel the paper digging into my skin, grounding me just enough to stay in control. "Don't look in the mirror now." The words echoed again, louder this time, more urgent. I focused on them, held on to them, because that was the only thing keeping me from turning around, the only thing stopping me from seeing whatever was standing behind me. Seconds passed, or maybe minutes. Time didn't feel normal anymore. Everything slowed down. Every small sound felt louder. Every breath felt heavier. Then something changed. The shadow moved. Not mine, the other one. It shifted slightly to the side. Just a small movement, but enough to break everything. My heart slammed hard against my chest. I froze completely, my eyes widening, because my body hadn't moved, but the shadow had. That meant one thing. It wasn't connected to me. It never was. A cold wave rushed through me, stronger than anything before. My knees felt weak, like they might give out at any second. I wanted to run. I wanted to get out of that room, open the door, get as far away as possible. But I couldn't, because I didn't know if it was still just a shadow, or if it was something more now. My breathing became louder, harder to control. I tried to stay quiet, but my body wouldn't listen anymore. And then, very slowly, the second shadow lifted its arm. I watched it happen in complete disbelief. The shape rising upward, smooth and unnatural. But my own arms, they didn't move. I looked down quickly at my hands, still at my sides. Still, my chest tightened painfully. "No," I whispered. My voice cracked this time, because there was no explaining. That, no ignoring it. The shadow held its arm up for a moment. Then it began to lower it again, slow, deliberate, like it was testing something, or mimicking a motion it had just learned. I felt a sudden wave of panic rising inside me, sharp and overwhelming. I couldn't stay like this anymore. I couldn't just stand there and pretend it wasn't happening. The pressure in my chest grew stronger. The silence became unbearable. And then I realized something that made everything worse. The shadow wasn't facing the same direction as mine. It was angled slightly differently. Like it wasn't standing directly behind me anymore. Like it had turned toward something else, toward the mirror. My stomach dropped instantly, because that meant, whatever it wasn't just behind me now. It was connected to the mirror again. Or maybe it never left. My grip on the paper loosened slightly. My fingers trembling. The urge to turn around came back stronger than ever. Not just curiosity now, something deeper, something pulling at me from the inside, like I needed to see it, like I had to. My head tilted slightly before I could stop myself, just a little, just enough to feel the shift. No, don't, I whispered quickly, trying to hold myself still. But it was getting harder. The silence pressed in on me. The presence behind me felt closer again, and then I heard it. A sound, not from the door, not from the room, from the mirror. A soft, faint movement, like someone stepping forward on the other side of the glass. My heart skipped. Everything inside me tensed. And before I could stop myself, before I could think, my eyes began to lift. Slowly, drawn upward, toward the mirror, toward whatever was waiting for me inside it.